Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we are joined by a very special guest. He is an author, TV host, and licensed professional clinical counselor, Mr. Zander Sprague. How you doing
Ryan,
today, Zander?
I'm doing great. In fact, I would say I'm doing epic. I'm so excited to be here, so excited to talk about, walking through the fire and stuff.
Awesome. And you like even your title was kind of more than a mouthful.
Exactly. It's there's quite a lot there, but I'm excited to be here. The work I do is all about helping people through those, either take on those epic journeys that they always dreamed of doing, and some of it, and we're gonna touch on it because it's a through the fire, are what I call those epic unexpected, those things that happen to us that change our life.
Yeah. So the number one question the audience probably wondering, who is Zander Sprague?
Who am I? Well, isn't that an existential question? How long do we have? No. As you said, I'm a best-selling author. I'm a TV and podcast host. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor, which means I'm a mental health counselor. I help people with challenges that they have. But more importantly, I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission for people to really lean into their epic. And when I talk about epic, Ryan, what I'm talking about are those things that we say to our friends and to ourselves. Oh, someday I'd like to write a book. I'd like to run a marathon. I'd like to travel to this place. And I'm a big proponent that today is the day. We don't need to wait. You don't need to have the whole entire plan down to the detail. You need structure, but you do need to just take that one step forward and begin that journey.
Yeah. You experienced a tremendous loss when your sister was murdered. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So my older sister, Lucy, 29 years ago, was murdered in her apartment in Chicago. She was a second-year law student at John Marshall Law School, which is now University of Illinois, Chicago Law School. And, there were a lot of things I thought I might deal with in my life, but murder really was not one of them. So when my dad called me on that fateful night and was getting through, telling me what happened, I never thought he would say that my sister was dead and that she'd been murdered. So needless to say, that was a majorly epic unexpected for me. And the man who killed my sister hung himself 10 days later in the Cook County prison, which avoided what would have been an incredibly public trial. Important to understand that at the time, my father was a sitting district court judge in Massachusetts. So as you can imagine, the media was like, judge's daughter gets killed, and the man who killed my sister had spent 8 of the prior 10 years in Joliet State Prison. So, judge's daughter gets killed by ex-convict. Court TV can't write this stuff. And it would have been a really public trial. Luckily, we avoided that, and my family didn't have to sit through listening to that. I also have to say that one of the things that really had me worried from the get-go was, I guess with my father being a judge, I understood more than a lot of people sometimes the vagaries of our judicial system. That even though you might have all the evidence that proved to their guilt, something could go wrong. They won't get, there isn't a conviction or it gets overturned because something didn't happen correctly. So I was really worried about that.
Yeah, man, that's just a crazy experience right there that you not too many people could say that was something you'd expect to happen.
Absolutely. And, it obviously threw me for a huge loop. I honestly it was all I could do to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
I was obviously devastated by this. And one of the things that happened, I don't know, probably about 3 or 4 months after Lucy was murdered, was I had this moment of clarity on the Massachusetts Turnpike. I was driving down, and I'd really been wrestling with, why did this happen? Right? Common question that people ask when a tragedy happens. And I had this moment of clarity that I will never know this answer. So I need to just let go of it, because I could spend the rest of my life trying to figure it out, and I'm not going to get that answer. And being able to let go of that really took a huge weight off of me. I just wasn't walking around with this all the time trying to figure this out. Look, I don't know if I'll ever know why this happened. But one thing I can tell you, Ryan, is through that tragedy, I've written 2 books about sibling loss, one for siblings and one for parents. That came because I had that experience of losing Lucy, and I still want to help other people who've experienced that, because being a sibling survivor is a really lonely experience.
Yeah. What type of grief and healing did you have to go through?
Well, obviously there's all, I worked my way through all the steps of grief, anger, denial, acceptance. And sometimes, some days were better than others. But I think everyone's grief journey is unique. And, but what I have found from working with lots of other sibling survivors and talking with parents and stuff is that we have to find some of those creative outlets to let some of that pain out that words aren't going to do it. One of the things I did, this happened back in 1996. In 1997, there was a song by The Offspring called Gone Away, which was all about, someone dying and the singer missing this person so much. And it really struck a chord with me. So I had a video camera. I went and I shot footage of the town that Lucy and I, my younger sister, grew up in, schools that she went to, just places that she had gone and places I went with her. And I just created a music video to that song. And for me, that was incredibly cathartic to be able to take all of the feeling that I just couldn't put into words and put it into this creative endeavor. And other people have written books, they paint, they volunteer their time. Whatever that is so important as to find these outlets to let your grief out and to work through it. Look, there is no set timeline for grief. Some people work through it a little quicker, others it takes longer. But an important thing, if you know someone who's experienced a loss, don't say, "Oh, you're not over that yet." Ryan, I will never get over losing Lucy. I work my way through it, and most days better than others. Like most days pretty well. But I don't know. Do you have any siblings, Ryan?
Yeah.
If you lost one of them, would you get over it?
It'd probably be a while.
I don't think you get over it. You just find you find
a way.
Well, with time, look, there's that cliche time. Time heals all wounds. I don't know that it heals the wound, but what happens is time gives you find tools that will work for you, that help you deal with the grief. And you can recognize if there's something triggering you. Sometimes you have ways to sort of head off your train coming off the tracks that day. Other days you can't.
Yeah. How did that fire that you went through in your life help you find your true purpose?
Well, as I said, I'm not unique in this, but being a sibling survivor is a really lonely experience. And here's why. I'm originally from Boston. I was living in Boston at the time. I live in California now, but lots of people knew my parents, and they would see me on the street and say, "Oh my gosh, how are your parents doing?" Not one person asked how I was. The longest relationship we have in our life is with our siblings. We reasonably expect that our siblings are going to be around for most of our lives. Certainly when we all get to a certain age, let's say, I don't know, 75, 80, it becomes more acceptable to say we are now entering that time in our life where it is, death is more likely to happen. It doesn't make it easier, but it does sort of make it like, yes, this is when this is going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like if you have a pet. Let's say you have a dog and your dog is 12 or 13 years old. You're like, I know that I probably don't have a lot of time left with my dog. You accept that even though it's never easy, that this is more likely to happen than not at some point in the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I started to wonder whether my loss was less significant than my parents. And the answer, of course, is no. It's different, but it's no less significant. And so walking through that fire, here's the thing. There's over 1.3 million new sibling survivors in the US every single year. That's across all age groups. But let's just take that down and say there's over a million new sibling survivors. So we're everywhere and yet we're nowhere, because it's not like there's a handshake, a hand signal, or a pin that I wear as I walk down the street and can identify other people who have lost a sibling. Might kind of be nice to be able to say, "Oh gosh, Ryan, I see that you too lost your sibling," because that connection is important. It's lonely because people aren't asking how we are. They're not acknowledging our grief. And I can say that as a mental health professional, unacknowledged grief can have a profound effect on people's life.
Yeah. You've written 3 books. What inspired you to become an author?
Well, here, let me be honest. I'm a talker, not a typer, and the fact that I've written just one book, never mind 3, honestly blows my mind on a daily basis. The first book, honestly, came because of a conversation I had with a college friend of mine whose brother had passed away about 6 weeks earlier. And it was an offhanded comment that she made as we were having coffee. I asked her how she was. She was talking about it. She goes, "Yeah, I was in the bookstore right before I met you. And there were lots of books on loss of a parent, loss of a child, loss of a pet, but I didn't find anything about loss of a sibling." And as I walked away, I was like, I know that. I could write a book about that. And so I did. And my writing process, I'll put that in quotes for those of you listening, was I sat down and tried to type it on a keyboard, but I really do not like writing. But boy, do I like talking, Ryan. If you haven't already guessed as I prattled on here. So I dictated the book, and then I had it transcribed, and then I had something I could work with, and I formed the book from that. It's important to know that I wrote the book, finished writing the book, and sat on it for 5 years. I told everyone I was coming out with a book, but I really wasn't, because I wasn't doing anything to have it come out. Why? Because I had all kinds of feedback through school that I wasn't a particularly good writer. And so I didn't believe in my ability to write, but I got tired of hearing that. And maybe that's one of those epic moments for me, where I got tired of hearing myself say that. And I said, 20 years later, I don't want to say, "Oh, I'm coming out with a book." Sure you are. Where is it? Right? So I got brave. I took an epic step and I got the book published. And an amazing thing happened. People started telling me that they liked the book, that they found it helpful. At first, I didn't believe them. I honestly would have believed more if they told me it wasn't worth the paper it was printed on. But like anything, when you start getting overwhelming positive praise, you can't be negative, because you're like, well, all these different people from around the world can't be wrong. It's one thing if your friends or your family go, oh yeah, it was great, Zander. Of course they're going to tell you that. But complete strangers saying, yeah, the book was helpful. And that first book was called Making Lemonade, Choosing a Positive Pathway After Losing Your Sibling. And what I did is I talked about my experience of losing Lucy, what that experience was like. And I was lucky enough to get 5 of my friends who had lost siblings to answer these 28 questions about, how old they were, when did they find out, how long did it take to get home, and about their healing journey. And completely dumb luckily, the people's losses were between 6 months and 25 years when they answered the question. So I had this wonderful collage of, experiences from when people were really young to when they were adults to very recent to 25 years ago. So that worked out well. And then the other book I wrote, Why Don't They Cry, is for parents to understand their living child's grief. And I wrote that book because in doing my work with siblings, I inevitably work with lots of parents. And they would all come up and go, oh, I lost my son or daughter, but I have other living children. Why don't they cry? Why don't I see them grieve in front of me? So I sat down and wrote this book because I wanted the parents to understand what we as living children were going through. Some of the things that the parents might be doing that they're not aware that they're doing, but we certainly are. And one of those is, pardon me, I'm technically the middle child. I had an older sister and a younger sister, and here I am in the middle. Now Lucy's dead. So technically I'm the oldest child. There are expectations of the oldest child. I was 28 years old. I had absolutely no idea how to do that job. I just followed Lucy. Depending on your family, your culture, or perhaps your religion, there may be very different expectations for the oldest child and the middle child and the youngest child. For some people, they become an only child. All of a sudden, there's a lot of attention on them. And they're like, wow, right? So that's why I wrote that book. And then the third book, the one I really love talking about, is Epic. Epic begins with One Step Forward. And that book came out of, frankly, came out of the pandemic. As we said at the beginning, I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor in California. I needed 3,000 hours of internship. I finished that up in February of 2020. I was all excited. I'm going to take the exam. I'm going to go out. I'm going to do all these things. You might remember in March of 2020, there was a little global pandemic. Kind of shut everything down. So I couldn't do anything. I didn't know when I'd be able to take the exam. And as I'm sitting in my house, I'm sort of I got nothing but time on my hands. I watched all the reruns. I'm like, what am I going to do? And I got thinking about my life, and I'm like, I've been fortunate to do some pretty epic things, like write some books, run some marathons, travel to many really cool places in the world. How did all of that start? Well, it honestly started with one step forward. And my own experience is these big things that we plan on doing, we think about them, we get overwhelmed and we get stuck, right? Because we're like, oh my God, I have to do this, and this to get this done. And yet, when you take that first step, it's not nearly as hard as you thought. In fact, those first steps are actually pretty easy because you're doing something small, Perhaps it's just saying, I'm going to write a book. There, you took your first step. You just committed to it. Maybe you write that first sentence. You're like, well, that wasn't too hard. In the beginning, there you go. You just started.
Yeah. It seems a lot easier when you say it like that, too.
Well, but here's the thing. I think lots of us make these epic goals, these epic dreams we have, unnecessarily hard. Now, look, I'm not just saying go off without doing research. But so many times when I'm working with people, they're like, well, I mean, I can't start. I mean, I don't know all the steps I need to take. Let me make it easy. Ryan, when you got up this morning, did you have all the answers to all the questions that you were going to get today?
No, not even close.
Did it stop you from getting out of bed?
No.
No, exactly. So why on our own epic journeys do we say, I need to have all the answers? We don't. Have you ever, this is a ridiculous question, but you've gone on vacation, right? You've gone somewhere outside of your hometown. Did you know every single thing that was going to happen, when it was going to happen, and what your answer for that was?
Nope, not even close.
And sometimes we go on vacation. Yes, we have plans, but stuff happens, and that's part of the fun of vacation. There's unexpected stuff I'm going to do. There's stuff I don't even know yet I'm going to do. Maybe you go someplace warm, and it turns out that the snorkeling is really good, so you decide to go snorkeling. You didn't plan to do it, but you did it, and you're like, oh my gosh, I saw all these beautiful fish in this great coral. It's part of what makes vacation fun, that unexpected. So life has got a lot of unexpected. It's not all scripted out. If we just start moving forward, you want to know what? We'll get there. And even if we don't, because look, failure is part of the journey. You are going to fail at some part of this journey. That's okay. We do not get it all 100% correct.
Yeah, that's so true.
You know, I have something I write about in my epic book, which is, I call it the 97-3 rule. And that, simply put, I believe that 97% of our day is good and up to 3% is not so good. Look, yeah, we all have days where it's much more than 3%. That day Lucy got killed, certainly much higher than 3%. But even on that day, there were still things I can think back and say, yeah, there were some good things that happened before I found out that Lucy was killed. I can acknowledge that although that was a horrendous day, there were still parts of it. So if 97% of your day is good, Ryan, and let's say 3% isn't, why are you focused on the 3%?
Everybody usually does, focuses on that bad. That bad just keeps you overplaying in your mind over and over and over.
It really does. Again, I love to use examples that people can hold on to. Hopefully they walk away and go, oh yeah, I remember that. So here, I'm going to ask you a question, Ryan. In high school, what was your least favorite subject?
Probably science.
Science, okay. So if you got a 97 on your science test, how would you feel?
Good.
You'd probably be pretty ecstatic.
Yeah.
You'd be telling your friends, you'd be telling your parents. Would you be complaining about the 3 points you didn't get?
No.
No. Probably wouldn't even think about the 3 points you didn't get. Maybe you'd look and go, I'm interested to know what the right answer was, just so that you could, remember that. But you're not going to be going to the teacher and go, why did I not get these 3 points, right? So why in our life, in our daily life, are we focused on those 3 points and totally ignoring the 97 points that we got that went good? There's so much more in our day that goes good. And it honestly starts off with, we both woke up this morning, Ryan. I didn't doubt I would wake up, but you want to know, that's a really great way to start your day. I woke up, here I am. I got another day that I get to go out and see the world and change the world. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. What does epic mean to you?
What does epic mean to me? Well, for me, epic stands for every pilgrimage includes commitment. What do I mean by that? I know pilgrimage, some people think of a religious thing, but for me, our epic journey, whatever that is, it's a pilgrimage. We're trying to get to someplace. So If you're writing a book, you're definitely on a pilgrimage. You're trying to come up with the chapters for your book. You're working on, once you write it, then you have to get it laid out. You have to get a cover. You have to do the editing process. It is, trust me, I've done it 3 times. It is a pilgrimage. But I know, and it does, and there's commitment required. I mentioned I used to run a lot more, and I run some half marathons, and one 50K ultra. All of that training took commitment. I knew what my goal was. So much easier when you're like, I got a date that I have a race, so I know I need to be ready for this race at this time. So,
Yeah.
in whatever that pilgrimage, look, I went back to graduate school at 45. I had to get through graduate school. I had to get through internships so I could get licensed, so I could come do mental health. That was a 7-year process. You know, I knew where I was going, but I also knew it was going to be a long pilgrimage there.
Yeah. How is failure part of the journey?
Well, again, no one gets anything 100% right. I'll make it even easier. Do you like baseball?
Yeah. I used to like a lot more when I was younger.
Okay. But here, it's so when baseball, you make it into the Hall of Fame if you have a lifetime batting average of over 300. That's incredible, right? So that means that 1 out of every 3 times you got up to the plate, you got a hit of some sort. Let's put it into everyday life. Let's say, Ryan, you have 9 hours of work that you're doing. Maybe it's, your job, but maybe it's also family stuff or whatever. But there's 9 hours of work. And for you to have a Hall of Fame day, you only have to get that right 3 hours out of that 9 hours. Hall of Fame day, get it right 3 hours. That's not a particularly high bar, is it?
No, not at all.
And people who play baseball, if they strike out, they fly out, they don't get a hit. They don't say, "Oh, that's it. Forget it," right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I get to come up and try again. So if we go, well, I don't want to do it because I'm afraid I'm going to fail. Our history is just got so many stories of people who failed and kept getting up. Thomas Edison took him quite a while to figure out how to get the light bulb to work. NASA took a while to figure out how to get a man into space. Wright brothers, it took a long time for us to get to the Wright brothers to get an airplane. There was a lot of failure of people trying to learn how to fly and not succeeding at it. But they didn't quit. We're watching the Olympics right now. There are people who have made it to the Olympics, and congratulations to them. But they're not going to win a medal. Only 3 people win a medal. But the other people are still Olympians. They didn't fail. We look at Lindsey Vonn. Oh, she failed. No, she tried really hard, and she was willing to try. And yeah, she broke her leg pretty bad. But I bet you she's not regretting that she tried. Look, the only thing we're going to fail 100% at, Ryan, are the things that we do not try.
Yeah. How do epic choices create an epic life?
How do they not? I mean, I honestly, like, when we're making epic choices, when we're choosing to be a participant in our own life, your life is going to be epic. Those choices, to sit there and say, I want to change something. Maybe you are like, I'm going to start to exercise more. that's going to change your life for the positive. Maybe you change how you eat. Maybe you decide to write that book you've had in your brain for 10 years. Maybe you decide that the job that you're doing, even though it's safe, it's not where your true passion lies. Look, I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. I failed at, there's a lot of stuff I failed at. I joke that I'm a really generous person because there's all kinds of great tools out there to help you with productivity and help you do stuff. And I bought some of them. And it's not that they were bad tools. They just weren't the right tool for me. So that company got my money and then I didn't use their software or their tool. But that's okay because I realize that there's going to be things that don't work. But in my just being brave enough to go out and try, my life is epic. I get to do stuff that I'm passionate about. I get to help other people find that passion, step into their epic, and discover that it is possible. Look, in all those marathons, I had to do it I had to take it one step at a time. I had to concentrate on the road that was in front of me. I could think about, at mile 1, I can think about mile 20, but I got a long time until I get there. I got to just focus what's in front of me. That's true of all of our lives, right? You can think about the weekend, but if you're at Monday, you still got to get through Monday.
Yeah, and a couple more days in between there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you miss epic things on 2 continents, and how can we avoid the same mistake?
Well, I love to travel. And, sometimes you just don't have the right information. So there is something really epic, and you just didn't have the information, or you just decided, nah, I'm tired. I don't want to go. And yet, then you're like, wow, I missed that. And people are like, oh my God, that was incredible. That's happened to me where I'm like, oh man, I've been traveling. I'm really tired. People are like, oh, we're going to hike up to this waterfall. I'm just too tired. I don't want to go. And then I see the pictures and I'm like, man, that would have been great. So, again, information's important. Do some planning. Structure is your friend. Structure makes us feel comfortable, right? If in doing podcasting, I got to have a little structure to know how it's going to go. I don't need tight structure, but I need some structure to let me know I need to meet this person at this time. I need to hit record. I need to get headshots. I need to get bios. I need to do that, right? So I think when we travel, a little structure, but as I alluded to earlier, a lot of times we go on vacation and there's those unexpected adventures that we have that we're like, that's the part that you talk about. It's not like maybe you go and you're like, all right, I've already signed up to go for a tour of these, museums. And the museums are great, don't get me wrong. But sometimes it's the stuff that someone goes, oh, you should really go do this, Ryan, right? And you go there and you're like, oh my God, that's the thing I talk about, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're in Paris and someone goes, you really got to go to Versailles and see the gardens. Wasn't on your docket, but you go, sure, that sounds good. You go, and let me say, the gardens in Versailles are incredible. I'm not a big garden person, but I can really appreciate how beautiful they are. And I was so happy when I did that.
Yeah. What led you to start podcasting and launch the TV shows?
Well, as I said, I like to talk. So I wasn't going to blog because that requires writing, and I like talking. I just there's so many epic stories out there, and there's, when I turn on the news, there's fire, flood, and blood. There's nothing but doom and gloom, right? Everything is all the things that are going wrong. You and I were talking before we recorded. It's been a bit of a challenging winter for you. There was, like single digits or below zero. There was snow. There was just, you turn on the news and get ready for another 6 inches of snow, and it's going to be minus 25 and stuff. And although good information, I started the podcast and the TV show because I want to highlight that 97% that's really good and the cool things that people are doing, right? Who doesn't like to hear a good story? I watch NBC News at night. They end up with a kind of a feel-good story to end the night, which is always a good way to do it, right? Like to leave them feeling good, leave them feeling positive.
Except for the first 57 minutes is all doom and gloom.
I totally get you. Absolutely. There's 28 minutes of like, here's everything that's wrong. Here's, natural disasters, people shooting up people, whatever, right? But hey, we're going to end it, Ryan, with, cute puppies, and these puppies were rescued from a fire. Oh, that's great. I want some more. There's people are doing epic things. A funny thing, when I'm talking with people, I meet people and I talk to them and I talk about epic, and I'm like, so what have you done that's epic? No, I haven't done anything. But when I press a little, we've all done things that are actually kind of epic. Maybe you've run a race. Maybe you wrote a book. Maybe you traveled someplace cool. Maybe you volunteer somewhere. All of that is epic. We shouldn't forget that.
Yeah. I like that how you said that everybody's done something pretty epic in life.
They really have. And yet we all dismiss it. We put it down. And then when I push a little, I usually find at least one, but usually multiple things that people have done that you're like, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. What's probably your biggest challenge you face doing the podcast and your TV shows?
Well, one, finding guests. It's hard to have a show if you don't have guests. You might have experienced that where you're like, I need to find guests. Also, hopefully getting people to feel relaxed and be able to talk. I like you, I have a very conversational podcast and TV show. When I'm asking people to be in my TV show, I tell them it's a 27-minute interview on camera. People's eyes get really wide. They get really quiet. And I'm like, I'm telling you, it's you and I having a conversation, and it just happens that it's getting recorded. Honestly, Ryan, 99% of the people, when I'm wrapping up and then the show concludes, their comment is, there's no way that was 27 minutes. Felt like 5. I was just getting started. I had so much more I wanted to say. And I'm like, that's what a good conversation is.
Yeah. So it goes by quick if you just sit there and just chat and just don't worry about the camera.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they go, oh, you forget the camera's there. And people go, how is that so? If you're just engaged in a good conversation, and it happens to me all the time on my podcast. I'm having a great conversation, and I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, we've been talking for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. How did that happen? Why? Because it's a great conversation. It's interesting. You're engaged.
Yeah. How can people get a hold of you?
Really easy. If you go to epicbegins.com, you will find everything about me, my books, my podcast, applying to be on my TV show, how to contact me. Just epicbegins.com. You can also just, I got a YouTube channel. You do youtube.com @epicbegins. You'll see the TV show, the podcast, shorts, all my content. I really encourage people to reach out, and, if you want to begin your epic journey, reach out. I'm here to help people. I really want to help people go have those epic lives that I know they're dying to have.
Yeah, so true. There's so many more people that really, really want to have that epic life, but they don't know how to get there.
Absolutely. And look, none of us I didn't get where I am without having help and asking for help. Asking, saying, I don't know how to do this. Let me find someone who does, right? Let me ask other people who are further down the road. When I started my podcast, I reached out to people who already had podcasts. I got information about how they did it. What equipment were they using? How were they editing it? How were they getting it distributed? You don't have to do this alone. Don't be afraid to ask for help. It's amazing how many people really want to help you if you just ask.
Yeah, so true. Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
Well, we really covered most of what I want, but I really do want to let people know that there are two really important words that should be your companion on whatever you're doing. Those are not yet. And the reason not yet is important, there's so much optimism. So let's take writing a book. Have you finished your book? Not yet. If I just say no, it's such a hard stop. Makes it sound like it's never going to happen. Not yet says, I'm working on it. Think back to, remember I asked you about high school? You don't ask a high school freshman if they're graduating from high school yet. Why? Because we know that they've got 4 years of high school. Same thing with college, right? You see, you don't say to the freshman, oh, why haven't you graduated from high school? Because it's not yet. I haven't done it yet, And I think not yet is so important for all of us to say, I'm on this epic journey, but I haven't gotten to what I think my destination is. And look, sometimes our final destination isn't where we thought it was when we started, but that's half the fun. Kind of like going back to your vacation. You think you know what your vacation is going to be like, but then when you get back, you're like, well, it was sort of that, but there was so much more, and wasn't that cool?
Yeah, so true. All right, final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
We are all a lot more resilient than we believe that we are. I can tell you from my own personal experience, not just losing Lucy, but other things in my life, that I'm a lot stronger than I actually believed I was. I'll give you a super fast story. 3 years ago, I crashed on my mountain bike and I shattered my shoulder and I had a hairline fracture in my pelvis. I walked 1.5 miles out to get help. A lot more resilient than I thought. Luckily, I didn't know I had a fracture in my pelvis. I thought I dislocated my shoulder. I didn't realize I'd hurt myself as badly. And I guess technically I did dislocate it. It's just not that it wasn't in the socket because it was in like 10 pieces. But, we're a lot more, I think we're a lot more resilient than we actually believe that we are. And that's really important. When you have to walk through the fire, you actually can find your way through it. And just remind yourself that I am resilient. I will figure this out.
Yep, so true. Like just changing that perspective.
Absolutely. It's all in how we view it, Ryan.
Yep. Well, Zander, hey, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your insight and knowledge with all of us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, it was my pleasure. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.